Hello and welcome to the Merle and Locke podcast. I'm Merle.
And I'm Locke.
Set sail and low expectations for everything nerd, accompanied by a healthy, albeit shameful helping of pointless banter, lack of focus, and questionably acquired knowledge. Now to start us off here, Locke, what I want to talk about today is your thoughts on neighbors, right? So good and bad neighbors and your experiences. So I'll start now. When as a neighbor, we always make this push to be considerate and helpful and pleasant and things like that. Where like in my own experiences now with my neighbors, I know my neighbor right next to me. She has had problems in the past where she's come to me for help. And like the one day, like about a month ago, her fridge stopped working, and she came knocking on my door asking if she can put all of her stuff from her fridge into my fridge so nothing spoiled while she got her fridge fixed. And of course I said yeah, absolutely, just bring it on over. I cleared space and gave her room in which to put her stuff, and it was there for like a week before she could actually get her fridge fixed. And there's been other times where I've helped out neighbors, like watching cats, which cats obviously don't need that much care. Mostly they just want to be left alone.
Pretty much.
So I would just pop in, top off their food, let them outside for a little bit because the neighbor's house is cat sitting for their cats like to go outside. So I just let them outside for a few hours, then come back, let them back in if they were sitting at the door. So it was easy days, easy favor for a neighbor. And there's been countless other things that I've done for neighbors. And so when they see me, hopefully they look upon me fondly, for the amount of help that I've given them without complaint, without fuss, and I've always been there for them if they need me. Now, when I'm doing these favors, like I'm often looking for like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing, where like I can look to them for aid in the future if ever I need it. But I for one am one of those people who, I don't like to bother people with my issues, and I often like just figure it out on my own without asking for help. So it's like I don't get that help, any help from neighbors. Not that I can recall ever getting help from neighbors because, well, simply I never asked for it. But I mean, if ever there is something overwhelming that I need help with, I'm sure they would look out for me.
All right.
And this has helped with like many things in the past. Like for one, it's like it helps with security. Like if you live in a small neighborhood and you got all the neighbors are looking out for one another. Obviously, you're gonna ensure that we're looking out for one another for, I don't know, various reasons, like vandalism or breaking and entering if they're out on vacation, or I don't know, could be anything. It's also helped with like I've mentioned this on numerous occasions, where as a little side hustle where I often care for dogs. And I take dogs walking, I board dogs, and it's helped with that because I've watched the dogs of neighbors and I've given them a good deal because, they're neighbors and I work for cheap, and they've recommended me to various other people in the neighborhood, and now they're coming to me for help with their dogs because they know I'm affordable and they see me as being trustworthy. And it's a funny thing where like this most recent case where I've met someone that wanted me to care for their dog, they to straight up give me the keys to their house, and they say, "Oh, we're going out of town for a week or so, and we want you to take care of a dog for us." and I don't even know these people personally, but they've gotten recommendations from my other neighbors, like speaking to my character, and they just take their word for it, and they're just like, yeah, here's the key to my house. Now, I for one am like, I would never give someone the key to my house, not because I'm hiding any dead bodies or anything. It's just that I gotta want people that I don't know extremely well, like having access to my home and just like poking around and whatever, because it's, I appreciate my privacy, and like it's just helped other people get to know me, and hopefully, like, by extension, I'll be able to, call in more favors if ever I need. I have more opportunity to call in favors, which is nice. It's a nice little backup to have.
Right.
Now, learning how to be a good neighbor isn't something that I've always had a skill in, right? I remember when I got my first house, I was about 22, 23 years old, and those were the days where I was still attending college part-time, and I was more in the habit of letting loose, right? Like after I went to classes, I come back, do some homework, and then I just wanted to let loose, right? And I would drink a lot. And I was always looking to party then afterwards, because those are the days where I could wake up without a hangover, right? So no real suffering for it. So I would do this, and when I met my neighbors around that house initially, they were cool dudes. I mean, they were always like really nice and say like, yeah, we gotta hang out and stuff sometime and blah blah blah. But like, thinking back to it now, like, I think they were just being nice, and just putting on a face, as it were,
right.
just to be pleasant, right?
Yeah.
But I took it to heart. Okay, so I thought that they actually wanted to like hang out, and have a few drinks. And I remember this one night, it was on the weekend, where I was doing a lot of drinking. I was schmammered, and I went to my neighbor's place, and I was looking to hang out, right? And it was like almost midnight, and I start knocking on his door, and he was an older guy. He was like in his 40s, and he opens the door and he's like, "Dude, are you looking to get shot?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Dude, you can't just go pounding on people's doors in the middle of the night. I mean, people are gonna think you're like some kind of threat." And I was like, "Oh man, don't worry about it. I was just coming over to see if you wanted to have a few drinks and grill up some burgers and swim in my pool." And he looks at me like, man, this guy, the audacity of this guy. And then he just huffs and he's like, "You know what? Screw it." So he gets his swim trunks on and he comes over and we start drinking, grilling burgers and swimming around the pool and stuff, and just having a good time, good chats. And by the end of it all, when he was getting ready to call it a night, he just looks at me. He's like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know this is like a one-time deal, right? Like this is highly unusual, and like most of the people around here are older people with families just looking to relax and live, peacefully. Like it's not like a party town or something. You can't just go around looking to drink with everybody and party." And I was like, and it was like this realization in my mind, and a real maturing point or maturing opportunity for me. And I did make it up to him. Like the next weekend, I did mow his lawn, and I trimmed his sidewalk and everything, and so I made up for it. Like was my way of apologizing, just taking some chores off his hands, and I made things right. But it was something that helped me to realize that when you have neighbors, right? It's not always like a buddy buddy thing, right? It's more like just be pleasant to your neighbors. They're not looking to be like best friends or anything. Like I'm not saying that that's always the case. I'm just saying that most of the time it's just, your neighbors just want to be pleasant with one another. Because you don't want to be bugged all the time by your neighbors, right? And surely your neighbors don't want to be bugged all the time by you. I mean, living in that close proximity, it gives a lot of opportunity for, incessant wanting to chat and hang out. And most people don't want that. Like, they just want to be left alone. And yeah, so when it comes to neighbors, just like be pleasant, be helpful, look out for one another. But don't try to take it any more than that. Now, that's just from my own personal experience and what I've taken from it is yeah, just being pleasant, not trying to hang out all the time. So that was a big learning curve for me. Is there any experiences you might have where you've been a good neighbor or a bad neighbor?
I know a lot of times that I was probably a bad neighbor when I was younger.
I think we all are, really, when we're younger. We're just bad neighbors.
God, yeah, the parents are okay, but the kid blasting his music at all these hours. Yeah, so I had a system set up in my old Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I would just blare the music. The minute I got to the car, I'd turn it up as high as I can. Bass would just rattle, and so they knew when I was leaving and they knew when I was coming home. You could hear me from a mile away. But reading all these Reddit posts, I started thinking about some of the neighbors that I had growing up as well. Yeah, we had our good next door neighbors, but the one that was across the street from us, and there was this real pain in the ass neighbor that I had across the main road. Later find out that it's my best friend that lives across there.
What?
But yeah, Demented, we'll call him. He
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
He used to live across the street. We didn't know that he lived across the main road from me until him and another person that we went to school with were traveling down our development. Then that's when we started hanging out. I'm sure his parents didn't like me when I went over to his house the one time. We were just shooting hoops, and first I broke one of his basketball hoops, and then he and I both contributed to breaking one of his dad's shed's windows.
Oh, nice. There you go.
So yeah, then we were like grounded from hanging out with each other for a little while. But yeah, we had this next door neighbor, like right next door to me, my sister, and her husband. We're just hanging out in the hot tub, chilling, having a good time. And on the hot tub, it had one huge light on the inside that you could put a cover on and change the light colors if you wanted. And we had a nice red cover. And it would just kind of illuminate on the side of the house. Anyways, while we're chilling, we end up hearing our neighbors come running over. They're yelling. They were just having a fire out back, and they were come running over. They're yelling, they're screaming, "Your house is on fire!" Like, we're like, "What are you talking about?" Like, it's not until they get close to the porch that they realize that we're chilling there in the hot tub. We're like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing?" They're like, "Oh, we thought the house was on fire." And my sister and her husband didn't know what they were talking about. I look up, I see the reflection of the light on the side of the house. I said, okay, I can kind of see where they might think that's a fire. Maybe. I was like, maybe they're just chilling over there drinking, and that kind of looks like a fire. I can't fault them. They were being helpful.
Yeah.
If it was a real fire.
Yeah, you can't knock him for that. That's
No.
pretty great. Yeah, absolutely.
So we had neighbors that looked out for us. I don't know if you really had any neighbors when you were younger that you knew that they were the ones that you don't want to really associate with. Like they're just very like mean people. You ever have one of
Right.
them? Like if your parents like warned you and were like, that neighbor over there, yeah, you don't really want to mess with them. Like they're real grouchy or however they want to phrase it.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I ever had that as a kid.
We did. Uh, we really found out about it. I had a friend over who lived in the development, and we were playing out by this line of like old Christmas trees that we had. We had them lined up to divide the two separate yards. So he and I are just like playing along this tree line, and all of a sudden this car stops. Come to find out that this is the person that owned the land on that other side. They stopped their car and they're yelling at us, "Get away from those trees!" I said something to my parents and they're like, "Yeah, she's real crazy."
Yeah, I've had like bad neighbors as I've been older. Like the neighbors I have now are actually I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure they're drug dealers, right? I remember the one day, like in our development here, we have assigned parking where like you have to pay for your parking spots, and I have two parking spots, and the one I have is that I leave open. The one day I was out walking a dog, and these two people park in my spot and the spot right next to it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what the hell are these guys doing? So I approach the one of the cars, the one that's parked in my spot, and I see the two people in there, and they're like rail thin, and they're like really pale, and their eyes are all dark and sunken in. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god. And the one,
They're
so
demons.
it was like, yeah, so it was like a woman sitting in the driver's seat, and a guy in the passenger seat. The guy looked like was like shivering. It looked like as I was approaching, so he was like staring at me all wide eyed, and he was like shivering. And like I approached the driver's side window, and the girl like looks over at me, and I'm like, "Hey, you guys know this is a assigned parking spots, right? The visitor parking is over there," which wasn't far away. I could throw a stone to it. And they're like, "Oh," and her voice was shaking, and she's like, "Oh, we're just waiting to pick somebody up, and then we're leaving." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well that's fine." And I let them go. I was like, "All right, they're just picking someone up, no big deal." And like, so I didn't think much of it until like there was a couple of times that they had parked in, and they just started littering in my parking spot, like just throwing things out their window, like, you know, gas station soda cups and chip bags and stuff like that, just littering in my parking spot. I was like, man, so that's the thing. Say, like, I didn't yell at them or anything. I was just like, hey, I pay for this spot. I would like it to be open for visitors. Like, I don't want people thinking that they can just park here and leave their car, you know,
Right.
because there's a place for visitors parking. Go park in the visitors parking.
Right.
And, but yeah, then I had to start picking up the trash that they were leaving behind in my parking spot, which is a huge pain. I've also had other problems with that house over there, that apartment over there, where I think like these people, they, like, I don't know if they have like some kind of mental instability or something, but their apartment is actually government funded. I forget what the term is, like what it's called. They live there for free, and they're all a little bit, you know, not all there, like all of them that I've talked to, and they actually have an older woman that lives there, and she's in a wheelchair. She's wheelchair bound, and So my other parking spot, which I primarily park my car into, it's like right at the end of a sidewalk, right? And there's like a little sidewalk ramp from my parking spot. And the one day I pull my car in, and she comes rolling up in her wheelchair, and she's like, I don't know how he could do this. He, speaking to the property manager, and she's like, I can't believe he gave you this spot because this ramp is how I get my wheelchair up and down. And I was like, oh well, I mean, this is the only spot I could get, only extra park spot I could get, so that's why I pay for it. And I was like, but what I can do is I could just park my car more forward and off to the side so that you still have access. And she, of course, just started giving me an earful, like fussing at me, even after I gave her like a solution to the problem, and she was still wanting to let me have it, right?
Right.
So from that day, I started parking forward and off to the side, so there's plenty of space there for the wheelchair to come up and down the sidewalk. So I left all that space there so she can get up and down, and I still continue to park that way to this day. But a couple weeks later, I come out to my car and one of my windows are shattered. And I was like, well, I wonder who did this, right?
What? I wonder who.
Yeah, so I talked to one of my neighbors who he has cameras, and I asked him if he had any footage of my car, and if he could find anything, I could find out who did it. But my car was just out of range of his camera, so he couldn't tell me who had done it. But I mean, it wasn't that expensive to replace. I just got a window off eBay for like $70-$80,
right,
and replaced it. So it wasn't, but like I still didn't want to spend that money, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that much, to fix the problem. And I haven't had any problems since, thankfully. Like I've had one of the guys that lived there, he's asked me for money a couple of times, but that's about it. And I do remember the one day, right? My daughter was having a sleepover, and I was in the bathroom. I think I was taking a shower, and my daughter and her friend were playing out in the living room. And my daughter comes pounding on the bathroom door, saying that someone's pounding on our front door. And like I get out of the shower, get dressed and everything, and I'm like, who was it? And she's like, I don't know. Like she said, she pulled up one of the dining room chairs, and she looked through the peephole, and it was like two hooded guys standing there. And eventually they just left because we didn't answer the door. Now, first of all, I commended her for not opening the door for anybody.
Right.
And I went outside, and I saw one of the guys that lived across the road was wandering around in the road, and he was with another guy that was wearing a hood. And as soon as I came out there, they saw me, and then they started walking away. And they didn't even approach me or anything. I was like, man, like what were these guys doing? Like, I'm pretty sure they were probably on drugs. They were acting like a little weird.
Probably,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't really know what to make of it at the time, but my daughter was kind of freaked out, and she wanted me to come back inside, so I did. So I didn't go after them and say, like, what the hell are you doing? Which, yeah, I got, like, my daughter and her friend in my care, so I don't want to go confront somebody, obviously, while I have them in my care.
Right.
So yeah, I left it be. The problem is, like, those people being over there, I mean, I don't think they're going anywhere. I mean, they're getting government funded housing. I mean, why would you leave, right?
Right.
Move elsewhere if the government's paying for your house. They're here to stay. It's just something I gotta learn to deal with, I suppose. We'll see what happens. But besides that, do you have any recommendations for being a good neighbor, or maybe some tips for avoiding or helping to temper bad neighbors?
As I be considerate of your neighbors, be helpful if you see the opportunity to do so. If your neighbors are doing something that's destructive or unsavory, try to kindly ask them to either not do it or see if you can get them to stop. In a kind way. You come at somebody with an attitude, you're probably not going to get your way.
Yeah, you're probably not gonna get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's most of the time that is the biggest problem. Like those are the most popular like posts and whatnot that you'll see on the internet.
Yeah.
It's like confronting my neighbor because of a certain behavior, and then it's like a screaming match, and sometimes it turns out to be violent. It's like it's because you're going at somebody aggressively, and they're just like, what the heck is this guy like on about, right? So I mean, admittedly, like some people aren't, aware. Perhaps they're not aware of their inappropriate behavior or their inconsiderate behavior, or maybe they just realize it and don't care. I mean, I guess it's a toss up. That's the most worrisome thing about when people are out looking at homes and stuff. That's always something that I think about. That's a little disconcerting. Is like, man, what if I move into a place and I just got crappy neighbors, right?
Right.
That's always worrisome. But yeah, I guess all in all, be a good neighbor.
State Farm is
there.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Thank you for joining us on the Merle and Locke podcast. If you enjoyed this banter, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Merle and Locke, or simply follow the link in the description. Thank you.